Good morning and welcome to this week's edition of NCompass Live. I am your host, Krista Porter, here at the Nebraska Library Commission. NCompass Live is the Commission's weekly webinar series where we cover a variety of topics that may be of interest to libraries. We broadcast the show live every Wednesday morning at 10 a.m. Central Time, but if you're unable to join us on Wednesdays, that's fine. We do record the show as we are doing today, and you will be able to watch it later at your convenience. Both the live show and the recordings are free and open to watch. So please do spread the word about NCompass Live. Share with your friends, family, neighbors, colleagues, anyone you think might be interested in any of the topics we have on NCompass Live. And at the end of today's show, I will show you where you can access all of our show recordings if you want to see what we've done in the past. For those of you not from Nebraska, the Nebraska Library Commission is the state agency for libraries. So we are similar to your whatever state library. So we provide training and resources and consulting and databases and grants to all types of libraries in the state. So you will find shows on NCompass Live for all types of libraries. Public, academic, K-12, corrections, museums, historical societies, really, the only criteria is that it's something to do with libraries. Something cool libraries are doing, something cool we think they could be doing. We have Nebraska Library Commission staff sometimes come on the show and talk about programs and we have our resources and things we have here through the Library Commission, but we also bring in guest speakers, and that is what we have today. Joining us today is Kendra Brewer. Good morning, Kendra.
Good morning.
And she is from the Vermillion Public Library in Vermillion, South Dakota, our neighbor to the north. Yes, north. And she's going to talk to us about some station-based programming they've been doing at their library. Play, explore, learn, building early literacy through station-based programs. So I will hand it over to you, Kendra, to tell us all about what you've been doing at your library.
Absolutely. All right. Good morning, everyone. And thank you for joining. Like she said, I'm Kendra. I've been the youth services librarian here at the Edith B. Segrist Vermillion Public Library for about 2.5 years now. So if you have any questions, feel free to ask them along the way. Otherwise, save them till the end. So every library basically has a story time. And as hard as I know I do, and I'm sure you guys do, to make it as engaging and entertaining as possible, that doesn't stop some of our younger patrons from wanting to get up and explore the rooms that we're in, or they get impatient for the more fun parts of story time. I know that I always end my story times with shaker songs, and some of them will just sit there and ask through the whole thing, when are we doing that? And it's not every kid, right? Some of these kids just need more movement and choice and hands-on interactions. And to help with that, at my library, we created a program called Exploration Stations. Because literacy development doesn't only happen when we're sitting and listening. It also happens when we're building and pretending and sorting and talking, moving and exploring. So our program has brought together caregivers in our community and given them a place to come together every week and build relationships that they might not have had without this program. I have a core group of moms and grandparents and other caregivers that meet up each week and allow their children to play together in a learning environment, and they build relationships with these other children their age. And I've heard from several caregivers that their children, especially in the winter in South Dakota, you cannot go to the park. And so the only interaction that these kids get with anybody outside of the family is during our programs, and specifically this one. So today I will talk about how stations support early literacy, how I organize them, and how I've kept this program sustainable, and some tips for getting you guys started or adapting them for your library. So why does this matter, right? So children learn differently. We have sensory learners, we have active learners, social learners, children who struggle with sitting still. We also have a neurodiverse participation. That if a kid with autism sitting down and listening to a story, it doesn't work for them, they are more than welcome to join this program, and some modeled like this that might be more friendly for them, because this model provides dynamic and varied learning opportunities. Play is not extra, right? It helps with language development, sequencing, symbolic thinking, vocabulary acquisition, and problem solving. Another thing that I found is that, families need that flexible participation. This model of station-based literacy, children get to move at their own pace. It allows for choice and ownership over time, and the kids decide what and for how long they're doing each station. It allows the caregivers to engage naturally, because we're the ones creating the situation for them. There's less anxiety about behaviors expectations. I will say every single one of my exploration stations for the last year has ended with the kids running around the whole room playing tag, which is fine because they've moved through all of the stations and now they're playing, and that they're making up games and they're learning how to communicate to each other. And it's so much fun to see it kind of delve into that. This is also a very important program for like toddlers or mixed age siblings, and any hesitant participants. I have a family that joins us that's homeschooled. So I have a 6-year-old, a 3-year-old, and a 1-year-old that joins. Now all of them are able to do something and be a part of it. And the parent doesn't feel like they can't bring their kid because it's not for a specific age group. So, and then of course, libraries are ideal spaces for exploratory learning. Libraries are uniquely positioned to support joyful, community-centered early literacy experiences. We are accessible. There's no cost to participate. We provide the community connection and the informal learning environment. This program also allows you as the librarian or the person that's doing the programs to kind of circle around the room and engage more with your participants of all ages, which is so great. I think when talking about this program, it's important to understand what Vermilion is like. So Vermilion has a population of just under 12,000 people, and we are a college town. So we are home to the University of South Dakota, go Yotes, which is the only law school in the state, as well as the only MD granting medical school in the state, to the best of my knowledge. Our community can be very transient as families move in and out while a parent is obtaining a degree and then moving on after graduation, especially with some of those medical placements and things like that. They don't tend to stick around. So there's people moving into town not knowing anybody. So being able to have a program that they're able to come in and interact and build those community relationships, meeting other parents, other caregivers in the area, that allows their kids to also make friends, especially if you're new to town and you have a 2-year-old, you can't send them to school to make friends. And if you're not sending your kid to daycare, you have to wait another 2-3 years before sending them to preschool. So that is where Exploration Stations comes in. This is one of our flyers for the program. This program is weekly at our library. It's about 1 hour from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. on Thursday mornings, year-round. We do spring, summer, and fall programming that runs from January through the end of April, and then June through the end of July, and September through the end of November. So we are offering this program every month except 3 months of the whole year. So it is constantly going on. This program is open to ages 0 to 5, but if a sibling's older, they're always welcome. And the caregivers in our community have mostly been parents and grandparents. Sometimes other visiting family even join the caregiver and their child at the program, which is always fun to have new people and they get to see and maybe even take it back to their libraries, which is awesome. This is a drop-in program, so they don't have to be there right away at 10 a.m. and stay the whole hour. Most do, which I think is great. There's no registration, and the families move through the stations at their own pace. So they can pick and choose which ones they want to do, or maybe what is more age appropriate for their little ones. Obviously, a 1-year-old isn't going to probably be playing with the scissors. So, I let them pick their own choices. I have had somebody, play with them that I was like, oh, I wasn't expecting that. But it's totally up to the caregivers. So how does this look, right? I always do 4 stations. One of these always includes some toys, like puzzles, blocks. I have some trucks, like free play items that are appropriate for this age group. I almost always do some kind of coloring or craft thing for them at another station. And that one's great for all ages, especially because it can be so easily adapted. One where an older child might be cutting out the paper, another one will be coloring, and that's totally fine. Where the other 2 stations work on some other different skill, or sometimes something fun. Every once in a while, I like to pull out the bubble machine, and we practice blowing bubbles. And so, we don't take ourselves too seriously. I do stay in the room the whole time. I help conversations getting going between the parents and caregivers. I interact with the kids, and I even do stations with them as needed. I like to help model the behavior of what the parent should be doing, where they're not taking over and doing it for the kid. I like to kind of walk them through, kind of show them, because while they might be an amazing parent, that doesn't mean that we're all made to be teachers. So I like to do that. The other stations might work on fine motor skills or vocabulary, and it's almost always something that a parent can recreate at home if they wanted to continue to do that. So I like to model them around the 5 literacy practices: read, write, talk, sing, and play. So starting with reading, right? We're all work in libraries, basically. So reading begins long before we even realize it. Children engage with print naturally when it's embedded in play. So any kind of storytelling, visual literacy, so like matching games, picture prompts, themed books. I can always include that in some way. Writing begins with the motor development and symbolic expression. So this includes tracing, stickers, drawing prompts, and my kid's absolute favorite, Play-Doh, which works on grip strength and hand-eye coordination and other pre-writing movements, like doing some tracing worksheets is something also that we've had, and then have them cut those lines that they just traced is great. Talk. Conversation is the foundational for literacy. This is where they learn how to talk, where they learn how to read, right? Where a lot of the vocabulary comes from. So talking is great. And we are always talking in exploration stations. So stations just naturally encourages meaningful adult and child conversations. And we do that not even just with casual conversation, but with pretend play, collaborative building. They like to take the blocks and build towers, and they do that together. And then any kind of storytelling stations. So anything that emphasizes vocabulary exposure, expressive language, and narrative development. So by asking them what they're doing, have them tell you as you're going, or even you yourself narrating what you're doing. And then singing. Singing supports rhythm, sound awareness, memory, and phonological development, like learning to rhyme. Singing can be informal and integrated into play. So like doing movement songs is always fun, playing with instruments, musical storytelling, and sound exploration. So one that I do is I bring out rhythm sticks, and I also have these water bottles that I'd hot glued shut. One's got like rice with bells in it. One has pennies, things like that. And then you ask the kids to describe the sounds they're hearing, what they're seeing also helps, but yeah, what they're hearing. And it's a fun way to do that where you don't have to stand up there and sing or do rhythm songs with them. And then, of course, play. Play is such a huge part of this. And some of the things that I've introduced at the library here, I have a separate program that is just play-based that we do on Saturday mornings. And this one, I like to separate it. I always say that this is, while playing, we are still learning a lot. So play is not separate from literacy. It's one of the primary ways children build literacy foundations. Play develops creativity and sequencing and social emotional regulation, executive functioning, and symbolic thinking. So things like dramatic play, sensory exploration, and role play. I always like to bring in puppets. That's always fun, and they love them. So now I'm going to show a few pictures of stations that we've done. So here are, this was from my last stations program we did before the break. So there you can see we brought out the bubbles and the bubble machines, and we're just hanging out playing. And I had some bubbles set up to the side that the kids then could work on trying to learn how to blow bubbles. And then in the middle there, I have a sorting game, as well as some hand-eye coordination. Like right there, the kid and the caregiver are trying to pick up a fish with the magnet on the end of that stick and string. And then in the top right corner of the screen, I have a child that's sorting. Right there, they're sorting by color. But with that station, I have all these different little figurines, and we've had them, we asked them to sort them by car, by animal, color, and all kinds of things. I also have like tweezers that go with that, so they can work on some more of that pre-writing skills with their hand-eye coordination and motor skills development. And then, of course, coloring, right? I always find linking the craft to some kind of holiday that's happening, seasonal, is always fun. The parents really like it. We made Valentine's Day cards. We've done some winter-related things as well. And you don't have to theme the whole program, but if you find that easier, I would recommend it. Some could be like a space theme. So like you build a rocket out of Play-Doh at one station, and like another station you could have that kinetic moon sand. At another one you could do like constellation matching, or like some kind of coloring sheet, color a rocket, do space books at another, or like alien storytelling. I mean, there's really so much you could do with these and adapt them at your own library. Here are some other stations, if you will, that I've brought out. In the bottom right corner, that's an example of the toys that I bring out. So we have like busy boards and puzzles. The kids really like playing the acorn soup game. The little ones like to play. It comes with like a spoon, and you like mix them all together. It's really fun. And of course the blocks are a big hit. But I wanted to really point out about how reusable a lot of this stuff is. So while I don't do the same thing every week, I'll do the same thing multiple times a semester. So at the bottom left, I have a sorting mat there. That's just made from felt. And I have a bucket full of small animal toys. So they sort them by where do they go? Does the deer go in the water or the sky? You know, you ask, it's a good way to engage children, something fun for them to do. And then I'll substitute out that sorting page, and I'll put in a page saying, tell me a story. What are these animals doing? Like asking them to do more. And then of course at the top we have like shape recognition and making pictures that way. They always love doing that. All of those sheets are laminated. So once you have the initial shapes and your pictures picked out, you can just reuse it and reuse it and reuse it. It's so much fun. I also have like,
A question about that felt one. They thought that
yeah.
was very fun. Did you make that yourself, the felt, or is that something, some sort of something you can buy, a kit you bought?
That one I believe was handmade in library. So I hadn't said it yet, but I did not start this program myself. I've just expanded on it. So that was something that we already had. I do believe my predecessor made that by hand. We've not bought we do not buy felt kits. We make everything by hand. So
Nice.
good question. I'm sure you could find something. And I'm always
Oh, yeah. It looks like something you could very easily,
yeah.
put together yourself.
It,
Yeah, they're curious. Yeah.
Yeah, it's all layered on top of each other. So it's pretty sturdy too. I usually just roll it up and put it in the bin with the rest of the animals. And that's worked pretty well for me. I also have sticker pads, the reusable stickers. Kids love those. It's another way that they're working on hand the motor skills, hand-eye development. They are telling stories. They are sorting because I have so many different animal variations and cars. At the top, you can see my sound station. I will just pull these out, and they just love making the sounds. And then you ask them about it. How do you work this? Like, what are you hearing and things like that. It's so much fun. And then I have a few matching games that we do, and they have so much fun. It's insane how, like, just putting that game out, they're so entertained for the time being. Here's some other like kind of here's another cheap one that you could very easily make at your own library. So we do like a crayon rubbing one. So we just cut out cardboard pieces and use hot glue to make the picture. So I have like a house one, you can see a cat one that's been colored on in there, as well as a swirl and like some waves. And I asked them to make a picture with it, and so working on that, rubbing the crayon on top, and it's just a fun and easy craft, but you can reuse, and it's next to nothing startup cost for that one. Another example of a station is the cube. So I actually have two different things happening here. Well, three. The ones say how tall is the flower, and every one of those sheets is a different flower on a different length, and they can use the cubes to measure how much. And then above that, I have a different set of laminated sheets of just like sequencing and like pattern matching. So can you continue on the pattern with the cubes? And then I've also done is just got a basket and put random library items in it, and then had them measure it that way and talk about the different things. So having one initial thing, it's so easy to then expand on what you already have and keep it pretty cheap, which I like. There's an example of some crafts that we've done. And then here's another station I've done, which would expand on vocabulary. How does this feel? It's another sensory station. There's different materials on there. I've got some aluminum foil, some mesh things, as well as some sandpaper glued to a piece of paper, and having them describe what they feel. They're not like, find this one the most fun, but I usually pair it up with my sound station, and then they're pretty entertained. Here's an example of some worksheets. I mean, I've just found a lot of these worksheets online for free. I've made a couple of myself in Canva, but just by having something easier for them. So some of the parents take them home, even if they haven't gotten to it yet. But like that floating hearts one, they can color that. All ages can color that. And then those that are old enough and are working on the scissor development, they can then use scissors to cut along that line. Same thing with the short and tall. There's layered to it, right? They can color the picture, but then they can also tell you which one is bigger and which one is smaller. So being able to adapt what you have to all ages is also very helpful. Another station I have is the action cube. I have a couple different things there. The one has little pockets on it, so I can actually put actions in myself on that one, and we've done that before. But I also have this game to coincide with a color, and then they have to do the activity that's on the other side. And that's another easy one. I think the cards were $5 at the dollar store. Like, it is so easy to get started and then keep what you have and just rotate through. Here's a couple of different signs that correlate with different activities that we've done, as well as some of them talk about what the station works with. I usually stay in the program. That was not the case when the program started. In 2021, when it was created, the librarian created it as more of like a passive program that the parents and the kid did themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And then my predecessor, which is the librarian after them, joined, and she would stay in there, but mostly just to talk. And then so when I joined, I stay in there, but there are times, obviously, I've had doctor's appointments and couldn't be here, or I was sick. So I always like to keep these sheets on hand in case I'm not there to tell them what they're supposed to be doing, or like what this works on. So I always like to include that on the sheet, as not all of these parents know what exactly putting a bead on a pipe cleaner does for a young kid, but they hear it tells you it works on hand-eye coordination and sorting skills. So these are just a few different ones that I will put out, especially if I'm not there, a lot of times, even if I am. And then as well as a scavenger hunt is such a really fun and easy one to do, that find something that correlates with this color, or you can cut out those colors and stick them around the library and tell them to find them. It's so easy. And they really love doing it. It really just depends on the space you have as well. I think that makes a difference.
It's interesting about when you're not there that you put out, the papers that explain it, because someone did have a question.
Yeah.
Do you have any other youth services staff, or is it just you?
Oh, yeah. So I have one assistant, and they don't get here until the afternoon. So I do all the early literacy programs myself in the mornings. And then I do sometimes have help in the afternoon. We're a pretty small library, but we get a lot of participation from our community, which is fantastic, but it can be very overwhelming. So, yeah. But yeah, so I do all of this myself, but I have had, when I'm not here, the other staff has set it up for me, which is always helpful. I just let them know, because another thing I'm going to talk about later actually is because I'm so organized about where I have it all, and it's all labeled, and that can be really helpful for staff when you're not there. So yeah. So another big part of this program to me specifically is how the caregivers are engaged. So the caregivers are not observers, they are also participants. They need to be involved, and that's where the program kind of started, but has evolved since then. So you as a staff member, I would suggest modeling the interactions, so you can demonstrate by asking the kid doing the program open-ended questions, narrating the play, encourage turn taking. That's a big problem with some of my kids, a lot of only kids, and you can tell sometimes. This also reduces the pressure on these families. Like I said, especially in our community, they don't know anybody and they don't know these other people, but we're asking them all to play together and do things together. So you being there can also help complete that connection. But as well as reminding them that kids don't need to have perfect participation when they're doing this. They don't need to have the crafts completed exactly as the example is. And I want a very welcoming environment. So I always remind them that I don't require quiet behavior. This program for us takes place in an enclosed room from the library. We have a large community room that we're able to use, which is great, and what allows the kids at the end of the program to run around, kind of get some of the energy out before they move on to our kids area where they're expected to be a little quieter. So I think all of that kind of falls under the reducing pressure. It also is, making learning visible. So by using the signage that I showed, some literacy tips, the Public Library Association has a calendar that they do that I always print those off and hand them out with like daily literacy tips. I do believe you have to pay for it, but you can always just, I don't know. I'm always in Canva doing things, so you can always make your own if you'd like, and then reuse those. That's always fun. I always encourage the kids to do more, right? So like having them like, let's count together, and then the parents kind of model that behavior and they continue doing it, or even writing that on the signs when you're not there so that they know to, oh, I could be doing this. Describe what you see and feel. Oh, okay, I can do that. I can teach that to my kid to do that. And then it also encourages the conversations between the caregiver and the child, as well as between children, because a lot of times they'll be doing these together as well. Also encourages a family connection. This is a shared experience. They're building relationships together between parent and caregiver, as well as between siblings even. And then, of course, friendships. This is building the confidence between the child and the caregiver, but also, like I said, with the other participants in the room. I've seen so many friendships come out of this program, which is so great to see. Even when we don't have the program, they're still coming and meeting up, which I think is so fun. It's so good to see that the library has become so part of their daily, weekly lives. So really enjoy that. I wanted to share some kind of logistics and tips. I think the best overall tip I've even been given, KISS. Keep it super simple. It does not have to be a huge thing. I mean, start small, right? You don't need 10 stations at your library. I've managed 4 this whole time. Sometimes I put in a 5th one. It kind of just depends on what we're doing. But that is more than enough for my participants. I've been averaging about 20 people a week. So you can use that to kind of compare to your library and how that works. With the amount of participation I've had, not everyone can do 1 station at a time, but that's why there's so many stations and they can rotate through them. So that's 4 has been working really well with us. You can always grow the program, so don't let it intimidate you at all. I know I've said this before, but keep the supplies reusable. Sensory bins, scoops and tongs. I use my tweezers and things like that. I have several different kinds. I use that for sorting the animal things, but also sometimes I'll bring out pom-poms, things like that. Magnetic letters. I use that in a few different ways. We have a whiteboard in there, and I'll put the letters on there. I'll be like, oh, let's connect the letters with a line. Can you match them up that way? Or can you spell anything? A lot of them like to really spell their names. And that's just really easy and simple supplies that is a one-time purchase that you reuse, and you'll get more than enough of your money out of it. I also really like dry erase sleeves. Ziploc baggies also work in a pinch. So I always try to use the same materials in different ways. I like to laminate signs. And then I have a rotation of like projects that we do. So like that project of the mittens that I showed you guys, we've done that every year since I started, and they're still so excited to see it every time. So maybe you're spending that time the first time around making so many of them, then you'll have them on hand after that. Um, so if you're going to do themes, I would plan them strategically. So like oceans and constructions, farm, space, colors, seasons, like these are all great and you can reuse them, right? Because you can have a spring season and a fall season. You can focus on different things. Like you could focus on farm animals, but then you could also focus on more in depth on those farm animals. Maybe you're doing just pigs. I don't know. It's totally up to you, right? Like however you want to do it. So I plan around them with what we already have. So I think that also really helps. And then, of course, being organized, knowing what you have, and having like a setup and cleanup. So, like I said before, I'm by myself in the mornings, basically. So I've gotten it down to about half an hour, complete setup and takedown, as long as I've planned ahead on knowing what I want to do, which I usually kind of write it out as I'm kind of planning out my semester so that I know that I'm not repeating the same thing too close together. But organization is going to save your sanity. Labeling bins, checklists, and after knowing where all of that is, and exactly how you want it set up, you'll get your setup time down so fast. I like to have designated spaces for things. So in my library, we're able to have a dedicated space for that. And the things that I use on my Thursday program are completely separate from what we use on our Saturday morning play program, even though some of them do include toys that are similar, just so that the kids aren't confused about what we're doing, because they'll recognize the toys that are out, especially if they go to both programs, that I've had them come in on a Thursday and be like, oh, where's the bouncy house? Because we always play on the bouncy house on Saturdays. And I'm like, nope, this is Thursday. We're doing this instead. And they kind of just go right into that. So while I do want them to play and have fun, we are still working on different things versus strict play. So I like to keep them separate. Also, what's really nice is, like I said, I'm the only one in there, so making sure the parents and the other caregivers are part of the experience, and that they're doing what they should be doing, because I can't entertain the 16 kids that are coming that all at once. So having the adults there, being able to have them there to work with the other kids and kind of keep them not distracted, but working on things, really helps with the flow of stations. And another big thing is embrace the noise and the movement, right? Like in story time, while we're getting up and doing different things while we're doing it, a lot of it is sitting while we're reading the book. So it's a very different time than in something like exploration stations. Noise that you're going to be hearing often signals engagement. With the flexible participation, they might start it, but maybe they don't finish it because they're not quite there yet, or sometimes they're distracted. Maybe it's an off day. So don't expect perfection, but manage the chaos. It can be messy and noisy, or you have more people than you're expecting. It's an active program by nature, and I just try to remind myself that what I'm hearing is meaningful engagement. So at the end, when they're running around, that is meaningful engagement. They're storytelling together. They're playing usually some kind of tag where there's really complicated rules, and that's them learning. And so taking that on, as while it is a little chaotic at the moment, is so worth it when you understand exactly what they're learning. As well as like some of these kids that I've had brought in, they only ever get to do Play-Doh and kinetic sand and painting here at the library because their parents don't want to deal with the mess. So I always tell them I gladly clean up after them. That does not bother me at all. It usually, though, the parents have gotten the kids to actually, they clean up everything for me. So it's been really nice. They clean up all the toys, and they start putting everything back into the bins they have. So at the end, I wipe down toys and I kind of put them away. It's pretty great. Might have to vacuum every once in a while, but it's not too bad. And then another thing I would like to say is to remember to be flexible, right? So some of the stations they're gonna flop, and some are gonna be favorites, right? Like I can't compete with Play-Doh, so I always make sure that if I'm gonna do Play-Doh, I also have maybe not their favorite things, so that while Play-Doh might be the main focus, they'll probably learn stuff at the other things, but they'll want to come back to the Play-Dohs. It just is what it is. And then also just listen to what the families are telling you, the parents, the kids, the caregivers, about what they want to see. I was asked to do more experiments, which I hadn't really done before, so that was kind of fun. We did for just the older kids, so it was kind of actually a station I'd added on, just because that was something I was asked to do, but I didn't want to exclude the other kids. So I made sure that there was the 4 other stations, and then us older kids got over and we made what was it? It was like a DIY lava lamp. Yeah, we used like baking soda and vinegar and just kind of saw how that worked, and we talked about it, and it was really fun. I hadn't done that, so that's something that I'm looking to introduce maybe some more of. So I would also like to say to make sure that you're designing this program around the space you have, since this program can get noisy and messy, depending on what you're doing. Like I said before, we have a loud community room, but not every library has that. So maybe you use your kids area, or set up spots around your library, and as long as it's not going to bother your other patrons. As I said before, you want to be modeling behavior, resist the urge to direct the process, and model that to the parents. Like if they're cutting something incorrectly, and gluing things in the wrong spot, it's more about the action than where they go with it. And doing it for them means that they aren't learning. Try to keep your projects easy, right? This allows for them to work on new skills, maybe like scissors and like scribbling and letter writing. Might be the first time a kid uses tape. Did they use it successfully? Who knows? But like it might be the first time they do that, and that is always such a fun thing to see. Like the first time they use scissors, they hadn't done it at home before. Having some real like firsts. And then staffing definitely depends on your library, of course, and the size of your participation. So like I said before, average about 15-20 people. That's adults and children that come every week. I utilize the caregivers to help, and they have been pretty good about leading themselves when I'm not there. But that the feedback I've received is that they enjoy it the most when a staff member is there. I am also building relationships with them that way, and it's so fun to hear how the library influences their life outside of it. So I kind of want to just talk about how like I measured the success. So this has been a very successful program for us. So looking at the audience numbers from the creation of this program in September of 2021 through the end of last year, we did not have programming through 2020. Of course. We did not start programming back up until the summer of 2021 with masks. And we continued the masks through the end of 2021, I do believe. It's been a while. So from just August to December, we had a little over 100 people participate, which it was a new program. Like I said, though, at that time it was created as a passive program. And this model continued through 2022, where we did see an increase. And at that time, it was only held in the fall and the spring. In January of 2023, we had another new librarian start, and they started staying in the room and kind of offering a little bit more leadership to the parents and facilitating conversations. I started in January of 2024. And I continued the facilitating conversations. I've increased the number of programs held by adding it into the summer. So we're now offering it year round. This year, I've had about 200 participants, and so I'm expecting about the same amount as last year. I am seeing the same families almost every week, or I'm seeing them until they move on to, some of the kids have moved on to school. Some of them have moved on to, because their spouse or the person that they were caregiving for has finished their degree and moved on, or moved on for other job opportunities. And I've definitely seen an increase in engagement with the other early literacy programs that I'm holding throughout the week, because of they come on Thursdays. Even the other moms and caregivers will start talking up, like, oh, have you been to Little Learners? It's a preschool program that I put on Tuesdays, or have you come to the Saturday program? We all meet up and hang out at the library. So I myself am pushing programs during this time as well. I'm talking about some of our adult programs to them, but it's always good to hear how much they also enjoy it, and it can kind of roll over into your other programs. I've had caregivers tell me how much they and their children just love coming to the library and to this program specifically. I've had kids come in and ask when we're going to do a specific station that they really liked. So then I take note of that, and I'm like, oh, better do that soon. And I've just really noticed the relationships forming between the families and the caregivers, and then the kids themselves. So while we aren't doing programs at the moment, our regular programming, we're gearing up for summer reading. I've had the last few weeks that we haven't done that. These families are still showing up. I'm still seeing them. They're instead of doing exploration stations, they're hanging out in our kids area and playing on Thursdays. But it's so amazing to see the relationships still there, even when I'm not there to help kind of facilitate it, and how much of an impact that the library has had doing this. So that's kind of how I measure all the successes of this program, is not just program participation, but what they've been telling me, and then also just what I'm seeing. So
that's definitely a success there, through word of mouth, trying to sell your program for you.
Yeah, it's very helpful. I'm always appreciative of that. So if there's any questions, I would love to take them. I will definitely be able to send out my slides, as well as any other information anybody's looking for.
Yep, the slides will be available when the recording goes up. Yep, so Kendra is going to send me that. So if anyone was wondering about those, we had some questions throughout, and we do have some still have come in. And if anyone does have any questions, we still have about 10 minutes left in our session here. So anything you want to ask, anything you want to share about what you're doing at your library that might be similar, please do type into your questions section there. Now you mentioned about the participants that you have per week. You said 15, 16, or?
Yeah, it's about an average. Sometimes it's more. I've had 32 before, is probably the max. And then I've had as little as one family coming in. Usually when one of the families, the kids get sick, then they all kind of work it through. So I have seen that.
And I don't remember if you mentioned, how big is the population that you serve?
It's just under 12,000.
12,000. Okay.
So yeah.
Cool. Someone did have a suggestion, a recommendation of how they do themes. Like you're talking about picking a theme for some of these, that they sometimes theme their programs related to different festivals or fairs or parades that they're having in their community. You know, July parade, but also there could be just some local farmers market or fair or some event that's local. So that might be something people are trying to come up with ideas for themes.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Um, let's see. Cool. So this is, I love the manipulatives you use, but with your 0 to 5 age range, how do you deal with choking hazards?
Oh, yes, that's, yeah, again, adult supervision. So when I'm doing a program that might have scissors and things like that, I'll put them on the counter um, and make sure it's like visible. Otherwise, usually when they're that little with the choking hazards, the parents are usually right there. I also like to warn people, like, we're using paint today. I have things like that, which or I keep them center. I have like different tables, so you can really, we try to keep everything where it's supposed to be on the tables.
Yeah. So even when you're not there, like you said, you're sometimes not available. I mean, the parents are there. This isn't just put your 3-year-old in this room and leave them their own devices. Yeah. Usually that's good. Okay. Let's see. What is this? I gotta open this up to see. Do you have any, what sources do you typically use for purchasing your station items? You mentioned Dollar Store, I think, at one point.
Yeah,
It's called like Lakeshore, Learning Express, other.
Yeah, so a lot of the things that I've purchased have been Amazon. Nothing I've purchased has been over $25. A lot of the stuff is just handmade in the library, like, well, like the toys, but laminating sheets, just finding anything free I can online is also helpful. I've had a few donations as well.
Sure.
I have used Lakeshore Learning. I do recommend them. We've got a play kitchen in our kids area from them, which is fantastic and been a hit. I spend a lot of time on some forums and just doing some research into like certain developmental toys. And I also just look at longevity of things. So wood tends to last longer. So it wasn't pictured, but like I have some toy cars. Those are all wood toy cars. So they tend to last longer than plastic-based toys and materials. So that's a factor I take into it because I figure, if I'm spending the money to do this program, and I'm going to want to hold on to these things for as long as possible.
Of course, yeah. Great. Someone wants to know, maybe others do, what is acorn soup?
Oh, it's a really fun game. So it comes with these little cards, and it's got like soup recipes, and there's these little wooden their ingredients. So there's acorns and other like berries, and they're just printed on these wooden things, and they're supposed to put the ingredients to make their soup, and then you stir it, and then they love to pretend to make you eat the soup. Sometimes they just dump everything in it, but I've caught them now because of that game. They'll, like, when we do the sorting for like all those little figures I have like trains and stuff, like they'll like dump it all in a cup, and they'll be like, here's your soup, here's your train soup or whatever, and I'm like, well, whatever, right? It works. They're learning, they're playing.
They're making up, like you said, or making up their own games and being creative. That's all part of learning and literacy and development. Yeah. Let them go crazy with that kind of thing. Well, that's fun. Yeah. All right. And let's see. We got one more question here, which I think is a good maybe wrap up question. What would you say to someone who's just starting a 0 to 4 age story time?
Oh, wow.
For somebody to doing that for the littlest ones.
Yeah, it can be hard with that one. Again, I would say, especially more towards the 0, right? You're relying a lot on the parents for the engagement because at that age, you're asking them to do it for them, basically, right? So like if you're in a story time and you're doing a movement song, the baby's not going to move themselves. The parent needs to be helping to do that. So I think
Yeah.
even just giving some direction at the beginning of just when you're going into a story time, or if you're going to do station-based storytelling, you can easily do that by including more books at your stations. That's also something I've done before. But I always am like, oh, let's clap our hands. If you can't clap your hands, have so and so help you. Things like that, really help encourage the parents to get involved, and then able to include such a wider age range. So
I think the parental involvement helps a lot too. Like you said, making them a participant, not just as
observer.
not as observer. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd hope many of those parents would want to, always looking for ways to interact with their children, and having someone else give them some direction, like the librarian, of here's something you can do with your child.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely is helpful. Yeah. All right. I don't see any other questions. Does anybody have any other last minute desperate things you want to ask of Kendra? Otherwise, we can wrap things up here almost on time. I see you got a great little closing thought there on your slide too.
Yes. Yes.
And I think it's good. Libraries, yeah.
We don't have a huge budget. I just am very careful about what I want to invest in, and reusing the materials really helps.
Of course. We do have one question that just popped up. I'm assuming this is related. This is just one thing that you do, but what is your typical programming week like beyond?
Yeah.
In addition to this.
Yeah. So I'm running programs 5 days a week. So our early literacy programs specifically are on Tuesdays. I'm doing our preschool story time. So that's called Little Learners. And I actually go into an enclosed room and facilitate a classroom type story time where the parents can see through a window, and that goes pretty well most of the time. It's really fun. On Wednesdays, I do a regular family story time. Then Thursdays are exploration stations. And then on Saturdays, we do our, we call it Little Ones and Loved Ones. And it's just a playtime program. And I do those in the fall and the spring. And then in the summer, it's just story time, exploration stations. I'm trying out a new program this summer for stay and play. But on top of all my early literacy programs, I also run the K through 5th programs, and then my in the afternoon, and my assistant helps with the teens. So that's 6th through 12th. So we are doing something almost every day of the week. So
So you're handling 0 through 12th grade. Or
specific program type, but I also approve all team programming and then oversee that as well. So I might not be in the room, but I'm also in charge of that.
And then you got summer reading that pops up in the summer.
Yes.
And is that the time, as you said, there was a few months when you're not doing the literacy. Is that when during the summer?
So no, we take full programming breaks. Like we're doing some like pop-up stuff. So if anybody's doing like Unearth a Story, next week we're doing a fun run to kind of like preempt for that, but we don't start official programming until June 1st. Mm-hmm. So May we take a few weeks off. I'm usually like visiting the schools and like prepping to get ready. And then in August we take August off. We've just found with our community, people are getting ready for school. They're taking last minute vacations, and just kind of decompressing a little from summer reading, and then gearing up for our fall semester. And then December, there's just so many holidays, and yeah, we're doing a few other things during that time. Like we never fully stop programs. There's always something going on, but not as regular, if that makes sense. So
makes sense. Make it work for what your community is doing. Absolutely. All right. I think that is it. I don't think you see any other questions that popped up. I think we'll wrap things up for today. We have just a comment. Someone here, one of our local Nebraska libraries says our youth program project next month is space as the theme. Space. And thank you, Kendra, for the great ideas.
Glad to share.
All right. So yes, this was wonderful. So many great ideas here. I'm hoping some other libraries will use some of these, maybe not, depending on what works in your community, try them out. And like you said, not everything's going to click. If it doesn't, that's okay. Try something else. But I love this concept of these stations and letting the kids do a lot of more self-directed. But you've got that in addition to the more,
Yeah, some more structured stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, awesome. So thank you so much. Thanks, Kendra. Super helpful. Someone's saying too. Absolutely. And as I said, these slides will be available for you as well. So all of her tips and information about literacy and everything, you'll all have access to that afterwards with the recording. So I'm going to pull presenter control to my screen here, hopefully successfully. Yes, awesome. All right. So thank you so much, Kendra. This was awesome. This was a great session. I'm so glad you're doing some really helpful and fun things in the library. I think that's, yeah. All right. So thank you everybody for attending today. As I said, the session is recorded, and I will go here to our main NCompass Live page. So to find our recordings and our upcoming shows, if you use whatever is your search engine of choice, you will come up with our main page here. Here's our upcoming sessions, and then right underneath there is a link to the archive shows. Where you can find all of our show archives. The most recent one is at the top of the page here. So today's show will be there, should be ready by the end of the day tomorrow, as long as GoToWebinar and YouTube cooperate with me. There'll be a link to the recording on the Nebraska Library Commission's YouTube channel and a link to Kendra's slides. Everyone who attended today's session and registered for today's session will get an email from me letting you know when it's available. We also push that information out onto our mailing lists here in Nebraska. We also have social media. We do have a Facebook page. You may have seen linked from our NCompass Live pages. We have a Facebook page for the show where we post about reminders about the show, introducing our presenters, and then when recordings are available, you let them know on here. We use a little hashtag abbreviation of our show name, NComp Live, so you can search for that as well. We also put it out onto the Library Commission's Instagram account, onto our blog, my LinkedIn I use, anything I can think of. But this is the page, the one social media that we have for the show. So if you do like to use Facebook, give us a like over there. Keep up to date on what we're doing. While we're here on the archives, there is a search feature here. So if you want to see if we've done a show on a particular topic you may be interested in, go ahead and do a search. You can search the full show archives or just the most recent 12 months if you just want something very current. And that is because this is our full show archives. And I'm not going to scroll all the way down. If you can see, this is a very long page. But this goes back to when NCompass Live first premiered, which was in January 2009. So we are, we're officially an adult this year, 18th year of the show, legally adult. But we have all of our show archives here. So just be aware of when something was originally broadcast. If you do watch a older show, some things we find good, useful information still stand the test of time, but some things will become old and outdated. Research services may have changed drastically. Links might be broken. People probably work in a different place than when they presented for us possibly 10 or 15 years ago. But this is something libraries do. We keep things for historical purposes. So as long as we have a place to host them, which right now is the Library Commission's YouTube channel, we will keep all of our archives out there for you to watch. All right, so that wraps it up for today's show. Thank you, Kendra. Thank you, everyone, for being here. Look for the email when we get the recording up tomorrow. Hope you'll join us next week. Our topic is advocacy, engaging new voices in advocacy, youth trustees, and everyday patrons. Dana Fanslow, who's from the Nippersink Public Library District in Richmond, Illinois, will be with us to talk about how they have been expanding advocacy efforts in their community. So if you're interested in that and doing more about that in your community, please sign up for our upcoming show and any of our other shows we have coming. We did just have to cancel one, unfortunately. Libraries and Friends of the Library, as you can see here, it says canceled. I just heard the presenter can no longer present on that. So looking for a replacement, so keep your eyes open for what might be replacing that. Do not know if it will be able to be rescheduled or not. Sorry about that. But all of our other shows we have coming up here over the next couple of months, please do join us. All right. Thank you, everyone. And thank you, Kendra, and hope you all have a good day. Bye-bye.